Can you play a game using only your mind? And what I mean by that is, without practicing, is there still a way to improve just by thinking about it? This is a theory I wanted to test, so while I'm not much of a gamer myself, I decided to try a new game that I've never played. This game is called Forza Horizon, and what I'm about to do is race for the first time ever. I've never played this game before, and the only experience I have at this point is I was shown the basic controls. What I plan to do is complete the race to the best of my abilities and see exactly how long it takes me. I'm not so worried about what place I get because quite frankly I feel like I'll come in last. Given my lack of experience, I predict that there's going to be at least a little bit of improvement. By this point, I was starting to learn I didn't have as much control of the car as I thought. I ended up slamming into the walls to try and straighten out, and at this point I was told to press Y. Apparently this button rewinds the game to give you a better shot at fixing your mistake, but I wanted to see how well I could do without using this to my advantage. After a little while of going back and forth, eventually I was able to finally straighten out. But I still had a ways to go, and it did not get easier from here. I was in dead last place, and I didn't even see any of the other cars. And of course, when the next turn came around, I really screwed it up. So let's talk about why that happened. As I said, before I started this game, I was shown the controls, but I also watched my friend play, and he's really good. And I noticed that when he would go through corners like this, he would drift to get it done faster. And this is done by pressing A on the control. And while I very well could have slowed down and driven normally around the turn, I figured drifting would be something else that I'd want to attempt. The only problem is, I'm not very good at it, so I knew that that'd be something I'd have to work on. By this point, I was trying to formulate a plan on how I could improve with as little gameplay as possible, because I believe that you could learn anything, even with limited resources. So while I knew I'd have to learn the controls, which might involve visual feedback by actually playing the game, I knew no matter what, I couldn't attempt this race again until I was ready to compare the results. By this point, I was still struggling hard. I was only 30% done the first race. I understood how everything worked, but not being familiar with the controls was making it really difficult. However, as the race went on, I found myself becoming a lot more familiar. I obviously wasn't perfect, and I didn't think I was going to be a pro by finishing the first race, but I knew there'd be a slight improvement no matter what. So in order for this experiment to work, I knew that in the second race, I'd need to see a significant improvement from the first, not just a little bit. But the good news is that by this point, I'd almost done half of the track, and the hardest part was behind me. So the true comparison will be how I complete the first part of the map the second time, and of course the time it takes for me to complete each race. So let's talk for a second about where this idea came from, because it's actually really interesting. You see, your mind is a really powerful tool, capable of learning lots of things, but sometimes incapable of distinguishing reality from fiction. So some researchers used this concept in order to conduct a really interesting experiment. They collected 3 groups of people, and they were going to test the improvement on shooting basketball free throws. The first group was just a control sample. They weren't actually going to practice at all. The second group was the group that actually practiced. And the third and most interesting group was the group that just thought about practicing for the same amount of time that the group that practiced. A few weeks later, they all got retested to see the improvement. Of course, the group that didn't practice didn't improve, and the group that practiced did improve. But the group that thought about practicing improved almost as much as the group that practiced. Not quite as much, but surprisingly close. So using this concept, I wanted to see how much you could apply that to the real world. So by this point in the game, I was on the final stretch. I was almost done. I was looking like I'd finish in last place, but I was optimistic about improving. All I had to see at this point was how long it took me before I could compare it to the next one. I sped up and crossed the finish line, unsurprisingly finishing in last place. And as for the time it took, it was just about 5 seconds short of 3 minutes. So I got to work on my plan. This is the map that I ran. I knew I'd need to study this later, but first I needed to get some more control of my car. I couldn't practice running the map because that would be cheating, so instead I found a single corner and practiced doing that. I figured this would help me not only with the basic control of the car, but also the drifting as well. This would allow me to get the corners done a lot faster and more efficient. I was slowly getting the hang of it, and for the next half hour, this corner was the only thing that I did. I would try and figure out what different speeds would be easier or harder to turn at, and try and master it so I can keep the car's orientation exactly how I wanted it. I got better pretty quickly, but I kept going, just doing this one turn. In the short amount of time that I had, I figured this would be a really powerful tool to see exactly how good I could get. And while at this point I already felt like I'd do better if I did the race again, I took it a step further by implementing part 2 in my plan to make it even better. This is the map of the racetrack, and my goal was to visualize it until I knew it like the back of my hand. I wanted to figure out exactly what kind of turning I'd be doing and what I'd need to expect. I would close my eyes and imagine going all the way through from beginning to the end. After a little while of doing this, I finally felt comfortable to start the second race. Competing against a time of 3 minutes and finishing in last place, I wanted to see how this could be different. I was feeling a little bit nervous, but I was really excited to try, and I felt like I would do a lot better. Right off the bat, it felt different. I felt like I wasn't trying to get control of the car, rather strategize how I was gonna win. I wasn't sure that I was gonna win though. Honestly, coming in the top 3 would mean that I've improved a lot, but I noticed I did feel more comfortable. Rather than trying to stay on the tracks, I was trying to pass cars instead. It was really early on into the race, but I had a good feeling about it, at least compared to the first time. I knew a corner was coming coming up ahead, so I prepared for it, but I turned a little bit too sharply. However, compared to the first one, it wasn't so bad, and with a little bit more time, the improvement could probably be better. However, I was still almost in last at this point, so I had some catching up to do. I made an attempt to pass the car in front of me, but unfortunately failed. It slowed me down a bit, putting me back in last place, but there was still a lot of time left. Now it was coming up on those corners that I really had to prepare for. But unfortunately, I came out turning a little bit too sharp. I was still doing better than the first race, but I was still in last place, and I knew I'd have to make a quick comeback. And if I could move up in the rankings to 4th or 3rd, I think that would be insane. Coming up on the next corner, I made a really smooth cut in front of the car ahead of me, and made an attempt to pass the car I couldn't earlier, and somehow I did. I was up to 6th place, and the hardest part of the race was over. I just needed to pass these cars. I had much better control of the car, and was focusing primarily on decisions that would take a little bit more skill. It was getting intense as most of the cars were clumped together, but I was determined to pass. By this point, I was about halfway done the race, which gave me a lot of time to still pass them, but a lot of time to also fall back. But no matter what position I placed in, the biggest thing was how much of a time difference I could improve. Yet my competitive nature took the best of me, and at this turn, I made an attempt to pass more cars. And somehow, surprisingly, I took the lead. This is pretty impressive, considering the first time I didn't pass a single car, but I knew it would be tough to hold it. Luckily, I knew the turns of the map, and while I wasn't perfect, I was a lot better than the first time at sticking to the road. I could tell the other car was right on my heels though, and wasn't gonna give up without a fight. I knew that with one small slip up, everything could be over. It was practically neck and neck at this point, and at the next turn, he actually passed me. But after just a couple seconds, I caught back up and took the lead again. If I could hold it for the final stretch, I knew I had the victory. And I was really excited to see the time, to see if there was a significant difference. I guess this really shows that anything is possible if you're willing to put your mind to it. I finished in 1st place compared to last on the first one, and I finished with a time of almost 50 seconds faster.